Good morning. Into the great silence at the beginning. All together into the bath. The great silent bath at the beginning. Well, let's do a little bit of meditation to start. Go there first. The temple bell receding into the silence. Proceeding into the silence. And the entire universe arising out of that same silence. The great silence at the beginning. It's our image for this month's Sundays. The great silence at the beginning. It's kind of fun to have in meditation. It's the answer to all questions. What's that sound outside? The great silence at the beginning. What should I do today? The great silence at the beginning. Should I leave my job or stay? The great silence at the beginning. Whatever's going on in your mind. The great silence. Putting on glasses, taking sips of things, moving around guitar building projects. I always like my first movements after meditation. I can feel the silence in each movement, reaching for the bottle of water, feeling the cold of the steel and the cold of the water. It's a kind of an interesting thing that I think, like, I keep getting drawn back to meditation because I get something. I get something. Why do I do anything? Because I get something. It was an interesting thing about, well, why do I sit? Well, I sit because I sit. It's because, I sit because I sit. But there is a thing, it's a kind of it's almost a simultaneous remembering and forgetting, I think, that happens when I meditate. And I do notice it's not something that I can do under my own power. There's not really any willpower involved or any clever thinking or excellent meditation techniques. Medication techniques don't help either. Yeah, simultaneous forgetting and remembering. If you've heard the great silence, you can't ever completely forget it. If you've heard the great silence at the beginning, you can't ever forget you've heard it. You might forget for short periods of time. And meditation is one of those ways of remembering it for me, I think. And specifically remembering that it's always here. It's always accessible. It's easy to start thinking that I need to change something in order to get there. I need to get my toddler to stop being so crazy. I need to, whatever, get my neighbor to stop, blasting music so loud. I need to get myself to stop being so critical of everyone else or whatever it is. So there's that. That's that old thing where somebody said to a teacher, I'm reaching for the light. Please help me. And the teacher said, forget about the light. Give me the reaching. So there's that interesting thing about anything that I do to try to, if I'm trying to exit the moment, flee the moment, we become refugees of the moment, right? If I can just get to this better, safer, happier moment that has more of whatever it is I think I need, then I can get a hold of this great silence. I can find refuge. That's what refuge is about too. We do the refuge thing and you take vows and you get a rakusu. But really that moment of just noticing, I think, is all of it. And you'll notice that the noticing happens whether you're making it happen or you think you're making it happen or not. Actually, the noticing happens before you notice that you're noticing. So that's kind of a fun thing too. That's the thing about how meditation does itself. There's one way of saying it where if you notice that your mind has wandered, bring it back. But I don't know, by the time I've noticed that my mind has wandered and my mind has been brought back, I haven't even come into being yet. The mind just brings itself back in a way. So that's kind of a nice thing. You can rely on that in your meditation. You don't have to put much effort into it. You might notice it even works outside your meditation when you're doing the dishes or wrangling your toddler or doing your taxes. Don't forget tax season's coming up. So it's there too, the great silence, the beginning. And where is the beginning, or when is the beginning? How do I get to it? And I mean, if you've been around Zen for very long, you probably already know it's probably right here. So that's a nice little thing to keep in your back pocket. If I'm looking for the silence, it might already be here. It might be in the looking itself. Yeah. So this morning I was, we'll go back to the beginning, I guess. Leading up to this talk, I notice this is something I talk about a lot in talks, but I'm just like endlessly fascinated by it. Like there's some little like notification that kept popping up in my mind about, okay, your talk is on Sunday, you should probably start preparing for that. And I'd kind of look at it and go, think about, well, what should I be doing to prepare? And then that little notification said, well, you should probably like read some books or listen to some other teachers or do extra meditation or at least pick a koan or something. You should probably prepare in some way, get more serious, start being more worried. And I just kind of couldn't get on board with that. It would pop up and I'd go, yeah, that seems like a pretty good idea. And then I'd almost instantaneously forget about it and just go back to what I was doing. And it happened about once a day. And sometimes like the voice gets louder as I get closer to a talk or if we're doing a retreat or something like that. And this time it didn't really get louder. It kept popping up. And This morning I woke up and I thought, okay, I should probably start feeling a little bit nervous now, or trying to like find the silence somewhere. I just kind of couldn't get on board with it. And so I took my son to Walmart, which is not an activity typically where I find the silence at the beginning. I thought, well, shit, he needs to get out of the house, and we need diapers and deli turkey, and so we'll go to Walmart. And it was kind of a great practice. To notice all the times that a world of pain started to make itself in my mind. And it was kind of great because Walmart at whatever time that was, 8:30 in the morning on a Sunday, is not a real busy place. It's pretty big. And so we had basically the run of the store ourselves. And it started as soon, I was sure it started before. Yeah, no, it did start before. We left the house and we were walking out to the car. And before we got into the car, he wanted to kick this big pile of snow with his snow boots. He loves doing that. And I noticed myself like just a little bit of tension starting to enter my body. Come on. I think I said, come on, buddy, let's go. And then the more he kicked the snow, the more, come on, it starts to enter my body. And then at some point I just went, oh, well, wait a minute. There wasn't even a thought to it. And there wasn't the great silence at the beginning. There was just the being there in the of it. And something opened. And I just thought, well, the point of us leaving is so that he can get out and run around, right? Like, so what he's doing it, he's having a good time. It's a beautiful day out. We have mountains here in Washington. We have mountains covered with snow, and then the fog is draped low. It's like you can't even tell where the snowy mountain, and the white sky begins. It just filters up. It's just absolutely gorgeous. It's a nice temperature outside. And I went, okay, maybe there's something to this. And then eventually he moseyed over to the car and we got in. It just went on like that for about an hour. We got to Walmart. He wanted to get a shopping cart. And I said, we don't need a shopping cart. We're only getting 2 things. He kept wanting to grab a shopping cart. I tried to get him away, and I noticed that. I feel like you'll notice, you might notice this too. There are certain places in the body where that occurs. Like for me, I clench my jaw and I feel it in my torso, like in my gut. My abs kind of start. You'd think I'd have like awesome 6-pack abs by now, all the condensing I do. And so I just thought, well, we're here for him, really. We're just here to be at Walmart. And so if he wants to get a shopping cart, fine. So we got a shopping cart, and just on and on and on like that. And it's amazing to notice. We go along, and I think in a way, that's the forgetting and remembering thing again, where we're just going along in the silence. And then I remember some agenda that I had that I didn't even know that I had about, well, when we get to Walmart, we're not going to get a cart because that's going to be extra and we don't need it. And I'm going to have to manage him in this way and that way. And we're going to have to go in and get these things. And then I'm going to have to make sure that he doesn't do this or that or run into anybody else's car. Just like, I'm sure nobody else in here does that sort of thing at all. My words are falling on deaf ears. But you notice that, right? And the mind starts making a huge world out of going to Walmart with a toddler on Sunday morning. Yeah. And then the noticing, whenever that noticing happens, that there's that clench, then that's the moment, I think, where things start to loosen up for me. In some way, just that it's brought to my attention loosens it up. And see, that's the nice thing about having an image or having a koan like this, the great silence at the beginning, is that I don't even do it. It just, when we come into contact with a great image or a story or a koan like that, it just takes up residence in us, starts to help us out behind the scenes. So that's kind of a nice thing. And it's also nice to have it consciously too, like just to think the great silence at the beginning. Feels nice. I don't know. I can look out the window and there's great silence. There it is. So there's that. And it's kind of an interesting thing too, that this image, the great silence at the beginning, has been, I noticed this, the other thing about the thing about awakening does itself, or discovery does itself, is that whatever images are at work in us do start to attract other images. They start to, a word that Tess uses a lot that I really like is constellate. They start to constellate other things. And so, put it literally, if the image is my son, and the gravity of the image starts pulling other images and experiences and memories and dreams and sensations and all these things together to make these incredible galaxies. One of the ways I love it most is it starts pulling in other koans, maybe that I haven't thought about in years. So that one started to come to me, and you can try it right now. We'll do a test drive. Ready? Quickly, before thinking good or evil, what is your original face before your parents were born? Yeah. Quickly, before thinking good or evil. That's great. And then, so there it is. And you look out the window and it's just there before your parents were born, before your grandparents were born, before anything was born. Really, the whole universe is already there. It's incredible. Just follows me around. And this is an amazing place to be. And I notice it lowers the threshold for joy. And like a squirrel just climbed down this apple tree, and I've got to start talking about the squirrel immediately because of how that made me feel. But it's there. You see it in the leaves, and you see it in people's faces, and you see it in everything. You see it in a car accident. You see it like wherever the thing was that you thought the great silence couldn't touch, or wherever you thought it wasn't present, or whatever the thing is you thought you needed to get rid of or improve or get, it's there already. And it's in the getting rid of too. Yeah. The great silence at the beginning. Another one that comes to me is Hakuin's famous one hand. It's phrased and translated lots of different ways, but you know the sound that two hands make when they clap together? What is the sound of one hand? What is the sound of the one hand? There it is. Mm. In that way, in the silence, that life is just always presenting itself, to giving itself to us. Incredibly generous. It's just autumn leaves outside and snow and the green of the shingles on the house and the squirrel coming back up the branch. Just the incredible generosity of the universe. Notice before you get into that mind that goes, I don't have enough of XYZ, or I have too much of this other thing. Just this is incredibly generous. And if you're here today, right now, you have experienced that. If there's anyone who's in denial about that, something, you have had that experience of the great silence at the beginning, and that has had some part in bringing you here. If you thought, oh, maybe this meditation thing has something to do with that. Some of you are very clear about it. You tasted the silence at the beginning, but it's incredible. It makes me think too about the a few weeks ago, John Tarrant and Tess Beasley did the yearly story of the Buddha retreat, before the end of the year, and which was wonderful. And one of the turning points in the story is that the Buddha is struggling along, and he's doing all these ascetic practices. He's starving himself and meditating on hot coals and on his head, and not watching Netflix for weeks at a time. And then he has this memory of being a young boy sitting under a tree during a harvest festival. And he's kind of away from the action, and the feeling that comes back to him out of that memory is just this sense of ease, that nothing is needed, nothing is missing, nothing is extra. It's just things as they are enough. And I thought, oh, maybe there's something to that. And so you notice you've had experiences like that too. Might be having one right now. So it doesn't have to be meeting the silence at the beginning, doesn't have to be some huge mind exploding experience. It could be something incredibly simple. It could just happen in just a flash. The first time you notice that the leaves are turning in autumn, or the first time you look out the window and you see the first flakes of snow in winter, or when the sun comes out of the clouds after weeks of rain or something. Or it's kind of great. I live sort of in the downtown area, and so occasionally we get people's car alarms and stuff. And before I have the idea that, oh God, this person should, who is doing that? Is somebody trying to steal a car? I wish they'd get rid of those things in cars, blah, blah, blah. Before all that happens, the first, it's there, right? The great silence at the beginning is in the first honk of the car alarm. It's actually in all of the honks, but then I get all worked up and start covering it up with things. So it's everywhere. That takes me back to a question. There's a quote that John Tarrant had all over the place for a little while. Something like, if awakening could come from any direction at all, what sort of effect would that have on your life? Or how would that change things for you? What would your life be like? Maybe that's the experiment. If awakening could come from any direction at any moment, no one is safe. Could just show up and steal your delusions at any moment without your permission. That's kind of a wonderful thing. Like, it makes you think, oh my God, it could happen. It could happen when I'm standing on the corner waiting for the light to turn. It could happen when I'm, going to get my toddler out of his crib at 2 a.m. because he's decided he doesn't want to sleep alone anymore. It could happen, could happen at any moment. It's kind of an incredible thing. You could just trip, slip. We've got lots of experiences over the years. We've got lots of context for that in our lineage, in our koan lineage. Somebody is sweeping the graveyard and decides he's not going to mess with this enlightenment business anyway. It's just going to tend the graveyard, tend the shrine, and he's sweeping, and a pebble flies up from his broom and hits a piece of bamboo. The noise it makes just breaks everything apart for him. Or the pilgrim Ling Yun's wandering in the forest, wandering, and he comes around a bend and sees peach blossoms in bloom, and that just snaps it. So kind of fun, like to think, oh, I'm always on the verge of waking up. And kind of fun too, that if you're coming out of a moment of, or a target moment, days, weeks, whatever, where you feel really awake and really clear, and then I notice things start to slowly, this just seems to sort of be the way of things, for me at least. Things start to slowly close up a little bit, and my body gets a little bit tight. And then when I notice that, I can just think, oh my God, I'm losing it. Or I can think, oh, okay, we're like sort of setting up for another awakening, which is kind of nice. Great silence at the beginning. So stop for just a moment and sit with that image, the great silence at the beginning. See if you can hear it. You listen with your whole body and your whole being. That's it. You've done it. That's the great silence appearing to you. That wasn't so hard, right? And sometimes you sink into the great silence and you're supposed to be giving a talk, but you can't find anything to say. Because it's like, it just keeps coming back to it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here. What else is there to say about that? You know, what else is there to say? Let me see if there's more to say. Yeah, I keep coming back to that. What is the sound of one hand? And there's a wonderful thing. We have several kind of initial big koans: sound of one hand, original face, no. Does a dog have Buddha nature or not? No. And then there are all these wonderful questions, just to, when you start to like get your little nose into the koan, there are all these wonderful questions to sort of dive deeper into it. What is the soundless sound of one hand? Where did you first hear the sound of one hand? And where did you first hear the great silence at the beginning? It was kind of nice. So it's there. It's not just, here's the other thing, it's not just here in the like, you know, you feel really present, like, oh, I'm just here and my mind is quiet and all of the things of the universe are here. It's there, but it's also in the memory, also in the dream, it's also in the delusion or the thought or the worry or the criticism or the difficult emotion. It's in the confusion of life too. It's actually always there because all of those things meet us here anyway. So that's kind of a nice thing to know too, is when you don't think you're here, it's okay, you're here anyway. The not being here is just a delusion. And so you can just be here with it. Well, maybe that's it for the moment. Let's do some more meditation. We'll listen to the soundless sound together. Quickly, before thinking good or evil, what is your original face before your parents were born? the great silence at the beginning. You can notice if your mind has opinions about what the great silence is or isn't. This can be really subtle sometimes. Just the tiniest movement to push something away or bring something closer. And just to notice that the great silence is in that too. Resting in the great silence at the beginning. I was just thinking while we were meditating, it came to me some qualities of the silence at the beginning, and one of the interesting ones is that it cannot be tarnished. It cannot be marred. It can't be destroyed. It can't be. It doesn't. It's not. It's not susceptible to those kinds of things. One thing that can happen that I have a lot of experience with this part is that it can be obscured. I think that's part of the forgetting and the remembering thing for me. I can forget about the great silence, become preoccupied with other things, and that's okay. It's in that too. Also can't be taken away, can't be given or taken. So if you think maybe you're going to get it from someone, or that you're going to give it to somebody else, well, if you have it, it's yours. That's the thing, right? It's kind of nice to talk about it without thinking that I can give it to you or something. That's like a whole thing about, well, I'm a teacher and I'm going to get people enlightened or something. Like, that's where the trouble begins, really, that I think that there's a me who thinks it has something that other people don't have. And that's the other thing, you've always had it. It's always had you. It's always, what is it, Yanto says, don't you know the family treasure doesn't come in through the gate? It doesn't come, it doesn't go. It's always here. So kind of nice to know. And if you think you don't have it, or you're not connected with it, or you've somehow messed it up, oh my God, I ruined the great silence at the beginning, then the whole universe is holding it for you. That squirrel that keeps coming back outside my window is like, he keeps looking in at me, or maybe she, I don't know, with this really knowing look in its eye, like, I'm holding it for you. And the trees hold it for us. Other people hold it for us. Back to Walmart. I kept my son was running around and of course has no idea about the etiquette of grocery store aisles, and was running out in front of people's carts, and oh my God, I'm so sorry. People were just delighted by him. They'd stop their carts real quick and then they'd just laugh. In a way, they were holding the great silence at the beginning for me when I was mixed up in my own little personal drama. And that's a great thing. And so in a way, and then seeing them holding it, oh, that's right, there it is in me. So there's something maybe about that we hold it for each other and we hold it for ourselves, and just the holding of it brings with it the possibility that more remembering might take place in ourselves and in others. It's kind of a sweet thing. And also, I noticed while we were meditating, all kinds of cliches, like Zen cliches, were coming up in my mind, which is kind of interesting. I feel like I don't live with Zen cliches that much, but they're like, it's immutable, it cannot be created or destroyed, you cannot. It's kind of fun because it's true, like, there it is. It's in every leaf, it's in every, but there's a reason, Zhao Zhou said, or somebody asked Zhao Zhou his line about, the greatest way is not difficult if you just don't pick and choose. And somebody else said, hasn't that become a cliche? And he goes, yeah, I just can't get away from it. That's the thing about kind of true cliches. Like, there they are, hundreds of years later, and there they are. So then here's from the Tao Te Ching. We have lots of Taoist influence in our Zen because it comes through China. Here's chapter 1. This is the Fu Feng and Jane English translation. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. There you go. It's a great silence that, everything I'm describing to you today is not quite it there, The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The great silence at the beginning. That's still just a hair's breadth away from it. The best you can do is there it is. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. So isn't it beautiful? The nameless. Can you feel that? The nameless. The namelessness of the world right now. It's the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of 10,000 things. You've got bowls and water bottles and fidget toys and all the 10,000 things. Ever desireless, one can see the mystery. Ever desiring, one sees the manifestations. So it's easy to go, oh, ever desireless, one can see the mystery, so I've got to get rid of all my desires, right? That must be the path. Well, you can do that, and you might see something, but ultimately the desires come back, and that's kind of nice too. It's nice to desire things. Why can't the clear-eyed bodhisattva sever the crimson thread? Whatever it is. I'm hungry, I'm horny, I'm tired, I'm whatever it is, But those two do seem to go together. I notice the mystery arises, and along with the mystery arising, there is a kind of transparency to the desire. There's not that clinginess about it that, oh my God, I've got to have whatever it is I think I have. And they can be part of the mystery. That's the thing. The desire. Here's a call on for you. Where do desires come from? Here we go. Sit with that for 100 years and let me know what you come up with. So ever desireless, one can see the mystery. Ever desiring, one sees the manifestations. So I need a new graphics processing unit for my computer. I really, really need it. I need it. I need it. Shows up, and my desire shows up in the graphics processing unit. These two spring from the same source, but differ in name. From the great silence at the beginning. This appears as darkness. Darkness within darkness. The gate to all mystery. It's a great thing. Somebody came from pilgrimage and went to see a teacher, and the teacher said, "Oh, what you been up to?" And he goes, "I've been on pilgrimage." And the teacher says, "Oh, what's pilgrimage all about?" And the person says, "I don't know." And the teacher said, "Not knowing is most intimate. Most intimate." It's that like incredible, the feeling of the cold of my water bottle is in like Dolby surround right now. I just, wow, the intimacy that comes forth. You can feel the universe reaching for you in a way. It's like, I don't know, it's not reaching, it's just there. You can feel it, the leaves, the orange of the leaves and the brown of the leaves and the snow and the soft pitter-patter of rain. It's just right there. There's no going out to get it. There's no getting rid of something to get it. It's just here. Another thing is that you can trust the great silence at the beginning. You can trust it. And that's like giving this talk this morning, or showing up to Walmart with my son, or whatever. I can trust that. I can trust the not knowing. That when you arrive, wherever you are, whatever you need might already be given. Or it might be waiting for you there. Actually, Tess and I were kind of joking about this the other day, about, whether or not you feel like you've prepared enough for something, and you show up and then you just kind of hope that whatever you need for giving a talk, for example, or doing a job interview, or meeting somebody for a first date, or whatever you think it is, starting out on a trip. Well, when I get in the car, then my destination will be revealed to me. Or maybe not yet. Maybe I need to start driving first. But so it's an amazing thing to really see how much we're just stepping into emptiness all the time. All the time. And I might have some agenda, like it could be something incredibly simple. After this talk, I'm going to walk out of my office and down the path and into the house and get myself a snack. But just the mystery arises even out of the most simple thing, right? Out of the crunch of the snow under my shoes, out of the first blast of cold air when I open the door, to the sounds that are happening in the house when I arrive there, just the liveliness of life. It's always blooming out of that silence, I suppose. The silence underneath my thoughts and my opinions and my agendas, and blooms right through them and out of them. So that's the thing about, you can trust it to, and if you can trust the silence at the beginning, then you might be able to trust when you're confused and you're deluded and you're anxious and whatever it is, that it's okay. The great silence has you. Great silence has you and is waiting. It's inside of the trouble. Oh, cool. I think I'd like to hear from some other people if they have anything to say. Tess Beasley and Allison Atwill are my co-conspirators in this, and so I'd love to see. Allison, do you have anything you want to say, add?
Sure. Let me check my sound. There we go. Couple days ago, I was in a doctor's office, and it was one of those examining rooms where you go in and the assistant comes in, and then she tells me a few things, and she left me with a pair of paper shorts to change into. And she leaves, she closes the door, and there's a kind of silence that experience in some place like that. It's like the whole world has fallen away and time has stopped. And I was going in to get an injection in my hip, and so I put on these shorts, and they're paper with this sort of elastic waist, and I had dressed up to go see my orthopedic surgeon. I don't know why. I don't know why I'd really dress up to see the surgeon. I'm just going to be wearing these shorts anyway. So I had on this very elegant black linen shirt, and I had on pearl and sapphire earrings, and a beautiful pearl necklace, and then these blue paper shorts, and COVID mask. And I looked around the room. First of all, I see myself in the full-length mirror. I'm there in the waiting room, and it would be a moment when there would be an opportunity for disapproval of my situation or myself, and it just seemed so like I was just really interested in what was going to happen next, what was happening now. And I looked over at the counter, and there are these two laid out on a paper towel, there's two huge needles, one huge needle and one sort of medium huge needle. And they were just thus, they were silently laying there. There was like some kind of, I don't know, friendly companions. So nothing yet had disturbed the silence. And then I looked over, and there was a trash can where they'd throw all the paper and things. And it was late in the day, so it was kind of full, but it was over full, and things were starting to spill out of it. And right there, I was caught. And I started to feel like you were saying, Jesse, where suddenly everything starts to get constricted, and I could feel myself pull back into a very small space and feel afraid. How could I trust this medical office if they were so disorganized that they would have trash coming out of and then I see that this is happening in my mind. And then the silence appears again, and then I'm not afraid all of a sudden. And there's the trash, there's the needles, there's the blue shorts, the silence at the beginning of the world. That's the report from here.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Tess, do you want to?
I just got when Allison said that, I thought, yeah, we are sort of like Zen anchors, all of us in our own little worlds. This is the report from here on the Dharma. The thing that kept coming to mind as we were sitting was this line at the end of the session dedication that says, "A kindness older than pain." And I was thinking, yeah, that's what the silence of the beginning is, in a way. Like you're saying, that there's this ease and generosity and boundlessness and immutableness, and then these things come to cover it. And how really like what you say, that we can just learn to trust that something will always appear out of that vastness. And this week I, for various reasons, got to spend some time with Amaryllis, who's not here today, but who's been sitting for 50 years, and got to hear a little bit about that. And one of the things we got to do was go visit the instrument section at the Met Gallery. And she's been playing violin for 65 years or something. And, and so one of the things I noticed being with her is that silence just appears everywhere. Like you're just sitting with her, having dinner, sitting with her in a taxi, and oh, there it is. It's just like, oh, she's a great friend of that silence, or maybe she just notices more that she's a friend of that silence. But as we were looking at all these instruments from all over the world, from thousands of years up to current time, it's like it was dead silent in the space. There was almost no one there. And you just think, all of these instruments, and there were some strange ones, ceremonial instruments and whistles and drums, and they all came out of that silence, each one of them. But also, as you let the silence in, as you're with them, we both started to say, well, what do they sound like when they're being hit, or when it's like their whole lives would start to enter you without anything actually being played? It existed already. And I think that's part of what you say. It never goes anywhere. It's always here. That kindness, that generosity that's older than pain, constriction. So, yeah, that's the report from here.
Thank you. I suddenly have like a desperate desire to hear some of these instruments that I've never seen. Just like what's contained within them. That's so great. Yeah, interesting. Thank you. That's beautiful. And great. Yeah. Too bad Amaryllis isn't here today. She's having a Wi-Fi problem, but that's kind of a beautiful tribute to her and the way that she's lived her life in dedication to the silence and the music. Yeah.
Can I say one more thing about that? Actually, just think of it. She said this great thing. Since we're tributing her, which I'm a fan of at the moment, she said a long time ago when she first got into Zen and she was playing her violin, she realized at some point that she wanted to hear without her thoughts getting in the way, and that meditation was the thing that would somehow allow her to really hear without any of that muffling or distortion or whatever, which I think is exactly what you're talking about. But you can also just kind of feel that in her in music. So that's it.
Yeah, that's great. It reminds me of an early retreat, and I still don't have any idea what I was doing, but I kept going to retreats. I went down to see the teacher one time, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but he pointed out the window. This was at St. Dorothy's Rest, and so just gorgeous redwoods, and he points across the valley, kind of, and says, "Where are those trees?" And without thinking, I just said, "They're in my body." Or they're inside me, or something like that. And it was interesting because I remember, and he kind of nodded and said, "Yeah, that's interesting," or something like that. And looking back on that, I went, "Oh, I didn't even think anything of that." And it wasn't much longer until I had any sense that that was any kind of interesting experience. It was before the thought, "Oh, they're inside my body," just like there's no distance between me and the apple tree leaves, or the sound of the violin, or the little bit of cold on my fingers. Yeah. Nice. Corey Hitchcock, do you want to say anything?
Oh, thanks, Jesse. This is pretty wonderful. I liked what you said about the silence is always blooming everywhere. And yesterday, my basement studio flooded, and in the midst of dealing with that, I just kept looking at how beautiful the edge of the water was as it crept further and further on the cement floor. Just that. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, nice. That's a beautiful illustration of like, wait, aren't I supposed to be like inordinately distressed about this or something? And you might get distressed, but then, oh yeah, the water. That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah. Nice. Jan Bro, you want to say anything?
Good morning. Really enjoyed just listening to my breath, feeling the breath, listening to the sounds, the sound of the air coming through the vent and the bird outside, and the feeling of my grief. My sister's memorial yesterday. So And that sound. So thank you. It's good to be here. It's good to be here with this family.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. This touches me, and I feel sort of like, thank you for letting me hold that with you. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like that too. It's amazing, isn't it? It shows up in actual silence. It shows up in laughter. It shows up in the edge of the water that's flooding our basement. It shows up in that grief, this fountain of grief. A remarkable thing. The formless form comes into form. Universe playing itself out through us. What a fucking thing, huh? I kind of don't want to leave that feeling, but I'll just hold that for myself. I would like to hear. Yeah, thanks, Jen. I'd love to hear from Allison McCabe. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, this morning has just been so, including just feeling really touched by what Jan just said, full. And when you first asked us to see, to experience that great silence, it had a fullness. It kept changing. So it was warm and full, and then my back was bothering me, and I kept seeing the tightening, and then, oh, it's quiet and steady and persistent. And then a lot of physical things, hot and cold, and just the sense of that sense of what you said, it's always been here in this. I mean, yeah, there's a way that I've known that it's got a vastness, and I just felt like I've been just soaking in it. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. You remind me of a good point, which is that thing about it's a kind of fundamental to our practice, I think, which is that wherever you think the silence is not, you can go in there. You can enter there. And so it's kind of you can play with that as a way of navigating if you feel lost or you feel cut off from something or you feel great, some ill feeling or back pain, which is something that apparently my body is quite fond of producing as well. Then what would it be like to turn toward that, to go into that, and you don't even have to have, like, I notice it kind of mucks things up if you have an agenda, or mucks things up if I have an agenda about, well, I know, I'm going to turn into my back pain and then it's going to stop hurting. I know, I'll have it. That's like having an agenda about the great silence. But if you do turn into the pain or turn into the difficulty, I think you'll find it's also there. And that was Dong Shan's thing about, you said cold and heat, it's kind of great, brings up that. Somebody asked Dong Shan, when cold and heat visit us, how can we avoid them? He said, why not go to the place where there is no cold or heat? Where is that? When the heat comes, let the heat burn you. When the cold comes, let the cold freeze you. Let it come, turn into it. That's the kind of an alchemical bit of our practice as well. So whatever the thing is that here might be the necessary process for awakening. If you're burning, you might need to burn. That's why you're burning. even if you don't need to burn, you are burning, so you might as well be there. Maybe freezing is necessary, or if you feel like you're stuck, maybe that's not something that is wrong. That might be the piece of the path that you're in, that the silence is doing through you. I think that's probably pretty good. The wonderful Jordan McConnell, who's like doing full duty as our house band all on his own today, is and thank you very much, Jordan's beautiful playing earlier as usual. Don't get a big head, I know you won't. Would you take us away with the 4 vows? Yeah, thank you. It was so beautiful. Well, thanks for being here, everyone. This is like a pretty good way to spend my Sunday, I think. So thanks for coming to share the great silence with me. And next Sunday, I believe it'll be Allison at Will in the hot seat. Yes, excellent. I recommend coming to see her. I certainly will if I can have anything to say about it. And yeah, go forth and enjoy the great silence at the beginning. Have an excellent rest of your weekend. A wonderful week.